Hi guys, so today's video is going to be part 2 with comparing different editions of the Stormlight Archive books. We're going to be looking at covers from France, Poland, China, Spain, and Bulgaria. I'm gonna start with the French covers. These are split editions similar to the German editions, similar to the UK editions, but these are, the UK and German are cool too, but oh my gosh, these ones are really cool. The German editions were featured in part 1, so they're not part of the voting, but I am going to put the cover images up for you because I think that the French editions have a very similar feel to the German editions, with one little exception, which is that I feel like while they both have big picture landscapes in their covers, I think the French editions have a very obvious character within that. And so I think it adds that little, almost like a personal touch. It feels very specific to the Stormlight Archive. I think the German editions were beautiful, but I think they were the kinds of covers you could look at and not necessarily know what they're representing, what book they go toward, whereas the French editions, looking at the second edition of Way of Kings, because they're split, that's very clearly Shalon, and then looking at the others, Zeth is so very obviously on the cover of one of them, which I just think looks so cool. I love when you can take, if you are going to have people on the covers, I like when it's very obviously a character from the book, but it's not really cheesy, real person looking really moody or something like that. I think they did a good job of capturing the feel of Stormlight Archive while also getting big landscape and specific characters. Also, I think it's really cool that the French covers might be the only covers I've seen that really feature a Parshendi on the cover. I think that's really cool. It's obviously such a big part of the plot. Next up, we are looking at the Polish covers. I so wish I had a hard copy because it looks like the Polish covers may have at some point gotten a reprint, and I don't know which ones are. I don't know how they're formatted exactly because I don't have a hard copy. The Mistborn Polish editions, the images are right on the covers. That seems to be pretty standard for other countries. In America, we almost always have book sleeves, but with the Polish editions, the ones that I'm going to show you, I was able to find 3 different covers, so I think that these are the ones that they're kind of going with, and these ones definitely are more focused on the shard blade, shard plate, that kind of a thing, which also, again, very specific to Stormlight Archive. But one downside for me is that the armor doesn't look that impractical. It looks still pretty, I was about to say pretty standard, but you know what? I have no problem admitting that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to what is considered actual, like, this is realistic armor. But it looks kind of generic. It doesn't look super magical the way that I would expect the Stormlight Archive shard plate to look. Next up, we have the Chinese cover. This one is so amazing in that the colors are so vivid and bright, and there's just something about it. What I like about a lot of these different covers is when there's something about the art style that very much feels like it's coming from that country, because when you start to look at a lot of different covers within a certain country, you can kind of see, oh, this seems to be kind of the art style. And in China, for their covers of the Stormlight Archive books, they have a definite style, not just, I shouldn't say just Stormlight, but in general, the Cosmere books. If you look up the Chinese editions of Mistborn, I think there's even an Elantris one, they clearly have a thing going, just like how the UK covers have a consistent theme across, an artistic theme across all of the Cosmere books, which I think is amazing. So for that reason, I really like this cover. I will say I couldn't find a cover for Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, but what I do like is not only are we able to see the cover, but we're able to see the entirety of it, spine, front, and back, and it looks so cohesive. It looks kind of like glass, like stained glass artwork. I just think it's really cool. I don't know if it's my favorite art style necessarily, but it's so unique. I feel like it wins whether we're looking at the ones from this video or the part 1 that I did, I feel like this one wins for just standing out. Unfortunately, the next one for me is the opposite of the Chinese covers, in that while the Chinese covers were very unique, the Spanish cover is about as generic as they come. I also couldn't find a cover for Words of Radiance and Oathbringer. Maybe they get a little more unique looking, but there's an obvious focus for this one on the landscape, and I think that the Shattered Plains play a huge role. They almost feel like they're their own character. The Shattered Plains have so much life, which I think is fantastic. I love that part of the story, and if you can represent that in the cover, I think that's great. But this doesn't really look like the Shattered Plains necessarily to me. It almost looks like somebody just took a picture of the Grand Canyon and then made it slightly less realistic looking. I feel bad saying this, but even the font style to me does not really, it doesn't seem like it represents Stormlight particularly well. The size of it's weird all around. Even though I love so many of the other covers that we're looking at, I just don't really care for this Spanish cover. Last on this list would be the Bulgarian covers. I love these covers. I want these editions. I think they're absolutely stunning, especially Words of Radiance. That cover for Words of Radiance is ridiculous. It is basically everything I like in a cover when it comes to representing the covers well, because you know what? I'm pretty basic sometimes. Sometimes I do just like a sword, or sometimes I just like where it's mostly about the font and the typography. But if you're gonna give me something inspired by events in the story, or if you're gonna give me something with characters, this is it. This is exactly what I want. This particular scene too, you're gonna get me if you can depict this particular scene well, because this is one of the best scenes in the whole book. There's one thing I want to add that I think is definitely maybe not going to be for some people with this particular cover, and that's that it kind of has almost like a Star Wars look to it. And the reason why I don't mind is because I've always felt that something that makes the Stormlight Archive stand out to me within the fantasy genre is that it kind of almost is a combination of fantasy and science fiction. It reminds me, I'm not really well versed in science fiction, but when I've picked up science fiction books, sometimes I feel like they actually do a better job establishing the world, because you have to make it very believable for the reader. With fantasy, it's like anything's possible, and with sci-fi, the fandoms in general, they seem more like, okay, but wait, you need to make this science make sense. On this planet, this would have to be this way because of the gravity and its moons. And sometimes I'm like, okay, but it's still not real. But with Stormlight, I feel like the amount of time and effort that went into making this feel so real, it feels like a different planet. It doesn't just feel like a magical world, it feels like another planet, and it's so well realized. And so for me, I feel like the artist captured that feeling of fantasy and science fiction, and it just works for me. The Way of Kings cover, once again, we're looking at a specific scene from the books, and they picked the perfect scene because that's one of my favorites. I don't think I like that cover as much as the Words of Radiance one, but I still like it. The Oathbringer one, it is maybe not as grand as the other two, but something about it, it's intriguing. I'm honestly so excited to see what your votes are going to be. I think I'm going to tweet and maybe post on my Instagram stories your results within 1 week of posting this. If any of you actually have hard copies of these editions, please feel free to tag me over on Instagram or Twitter. I would love to see these editions actually held in someone's hands. I just think that would be really amazing. And if you have any editions that weren't talked about in this one or in the part 1, let me see them. I think it would be so cool. Thanks so much for watching. I will have my Brandon Sanderson playlist linked down below if you want to see some more Cosmere stuff, non-Cosmere stuff, character stuff, whatever. I've got a ton of Sanderson content. But anyway, thanks so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.